Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about global warming. Okay, as we know that the global warming is the phenomenon in which the temperature of the globe increased, okay, by certain degree due to the effect of greenhouse gas, due to the increase in the concentration of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Okay, so today we are going to discuss the cause, effect, and impact and prevention and control of global warming. So the objective of today's discussion is to study various components that cause global warming. Okay, and after completing discussion, students will be able to understand the causes and impact of global warming on human health and environment. So, first of all, we need to discuss is the climate becoming warmer and warmer. Okay. So, according to the National Academy of Sciences, the Earth's surface temperature has risen by about 1 degree in the past century, with accelerated warming during the past two decades. And there is new and stronger evidence that most of the warming over the last 50 years is attributable to the human activity and human cause, and human activities have altered the chemical composition of the atmosphere through the buildup of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and oxide of nitrogen, and the heat trapping property of these gases is undisrupted, although uncertain. Exist about exactly how Earth climate respond to them. Okay? So this evidence shows that climate become warmer and warmer day by day. Okay, and this figure shows the continuous rising in the temperature, okay, of the globe. Okay, so this is global average temperature between 1850 to 2019. Okay, so this graph and land data prepared by the Berkeley Earth and combined with ocean data adapted from the UK Hadley Center. And here, the global temperature anomalies related to 1951 and 1980 average vertical line indicate 95% confidence interval. Means this data has to be statistically proved, and these are the surface temperature and mostly over land, and the temperature in upper level may be different, even reverse. Okay, so you have to see that uh, the trend is the continuous rising in the temperature, okay, up to 2020. Okay, and what causes the temperature of the atmosphere to go up. Okay, so there are many causes of this process. So there are many possible mechanisms that can cause the warming of the atmosphere. Okay, and these include natural variation, solar activity, greenhouse effect. All these contribute to the global rising of the temperature of globe, and the climate become warmer by internal chaotic dynamics of the Earth atmosphere system. There is no external influence. Okay, so some way it due to the natural phenomena and the solar activity, either direct increase of solar energy output or indirect trigger mechanism due to solar activity. Though nobody knows how they cause the surface temperature to go up, but to some extent, the solar activity is also responsible to the rising the temperature of globe, and the greenhouse effect is the major factor for the rising of temperature of globe. And this here the increasing greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbon. Okay, and actually water is very efficient too, but at present it is assumed to be in steady state. And the last one is presently though to be the most likely cause of the global warming, and hence we will examine it here. So how this greenhouse gases cause or increase the temperature of globe? Okay, so this is a this is an example. This shows that how this would happen. Okay, so you have to see that if we see that this is the chamber, or this is a small area which is covered by the glass panel. Okay, and this glass panel, whereas short waves can penetrate, whereas long waves are trapped inside, which are responsible for the increase in the temperature. Okay, like in the poly house, we can see that the temperature is slightly higher than the outer atmosphere. Okay, so this is due to the reason that the short wave can penetrate and the glass panel, whereas long wave are trapped inside. Okay, you can see that. So in that way, if we talk about the, our globe, okay, so when the whole globe has rising the increase the greenhouse gases, okay, so obviously these gases can absorb radiation, okay, and may contribute to the increase in temperature of globe. So, in this figure, we can clearly understand that how this radiation has to be influenced for rising the temperature of globe. Okay, you can see that there is incoming solar radiation. Okay, its value is 342. Okay, so you have to see that it distribute like that 168 absorbed by the surface, and 67 absorbed by the atmosphere, and 77 reflected by the clouds, aerosols, and atmosphere. Okay, so you have to see that approx 107 reflected solar radiation. Okay, by all these activity. Okay, and in the next, you have to see that out of 67, okay, approximately 78 around used for the evapotranspiration, okay, through the ocean surface, and approximately 44 reflected as a thermals, and approximately 350 as surface radiation, okay, and 165 emitted by the atmosphere. Okay, so it approximately 235 outgoing long wave radiation. Okay, but the remaining radiation can contribute to the increase rising the temperature of globe, okay, or Earth. So the example of greenhouse gases are water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbon. Okay, so water vapor also continue to the rising in the temperature of globe, and currently carbon dioxide is the main suspect of causing the global warming since the 20th century, because combustion of fossil fuel naturally inject carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and it has increased dramatically since last century due to the increase in the utilization of fossil fuel and petroleum products. So in the atmosphere, gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbon are capable of absorbing the terrestrial radiation, okay, and peaking at infrared wavelength, and re-radiate in all direction, okay, and thus part of the radiation is sent back to the surface, and this means that in the presence of these gases, the atmosphere will be warmer than without them, and these gases thus play the major role of glass panel in a greenhouse. Okay, when we observe the greenhouse effect in the greenhouse, hence the name greenhouse gases. Okay, and it is therefore reasonable to expect that increasing concentration of greenhouse gases will cause warming in the atmosphere. And currently, carbon dioxide is the main suspect of causing global warming because combustion of fossil fuel naturally inject carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, whereas other natural processes also inject carbon dioxide. Okay, and the industrial combustion process seem to play a significant role in the increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide. Okay, so currently the carbon dioxide is the major gases that may contribute to the global warming. So this figure also indicates that continuously rising in the concentration of carbon dioxide and the carbon dioxide emission. Okay, and this chart shows a steady increase of carbon dioxide concentration in the last 5 decades. And also this chart is based on the Mauna Low data, and the same trend has been found in many other places too. And the Charles Keeling had kept track of the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide since 50s. And this chart shows a steady increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the last 5 decades. Although this chart is based on the Mauna Loa data, and the same trend has been found in the many other places also. And this is another study or another trend that shows at the South Pole and Barrow, Alaska, and these locations show the same trend as Hawaii. Okay, and here also it has to be seen that the concentration of carbon dioxide is continuously increased over the time. And how is the carbon dioxide increase connected to the global warming? Okay, so physically, why the greenhouse effect, the carbon dioxide contributes to the rising the temperature of globe, and the connection is usually made via the use of climate model and control run versus scenarios has to be observed. It so clearly indicates that the carbon dioxide is continue to the increase in the temperature of globe. If the scenario run results shows warmer surface condition than the control, then it is plausible to suspect that the increasing concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere may cause global warming. Through the greenhouse effect, of course, the connection is usually made by the use of a climate model. And a climate model is usually a kind of atmospheric general circulation model, which simulates the physical and dynamical processes of the atmosphere. Okay, and by solving a relevant equation describing these processes clearly indicate that carbon dioxide contributes to the global warming, and a control run of the model is performed first, and the result are regarded as a reference, and hopefully the reference result agree with observation to certain extent. Okay, and then other runs in which the amount of carbon dioxide assumed in the model are increased 2 times, 4 times are performed, and the result are compared to the reference. Okay, and if the new result shows warmer surface condition than the control, then it is possible to suspect that the increasing carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere may cause warming. Okay. So certain model has to demonstrate to identify that carbon dioxide is a major gas that contributes to the global warming. Then the feedback effect we have to observe in the global warming. So here the climate system is very complicated, and a change in one component of system may cause change in the other component. Okay. So here there is feedback effect has to be observed, and sometimes the changes in other components enhance the initial changes. Then we say that these changes have positive feedback to the system. If the changes result in the reduction of the original changes, then we have used the term negative feedback. Okay. So both condition has to be observed in the system while we study the global warming, and both positive and negative feedback processes may exist in the climate system. And in studying the global climate change, we cannot make conclusion based on intuition. but have to take all such possible complicated effect into account. A good climate model would have predicted all of them realistically. So if we talk about the example of positive feedback, so here when the climate becomes warmer, either due to increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere or by other unknown factors, so the ocean may also become warmer, and the warmer ocean has a lower solubility of carbon dioxide and hence will release more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And this may cause the climate to become even warmer than before. Okay, so this clearly indicates that here the positive feedback effect. Thus, the dependence of solubility of carbon dioxide on the temperature has a positive feedback on the climate system. Okay, so this is very good example of a positive feedback when we study the global warming. And another example of negative feedback. Okay, here consider a clear region over the ocean. Since there is no cloud and the sun shine on the ocean surface, causing it to be warm up, and this makes this part of ocean warmer than other part, and the air over it tend to rise, causing convection. As we have learned before, rising air expand and cool, causing cloud to form, and the formation of cloud will block out the sun and the solar heating of the ocean surface will cease. Okay, so here the negative impact has to be started, and the surface will start to cool down. So thus the cloud formation due to surface heating and convection is negative feedback to the climate system. Okay, so this is very good example of negative feedback. So this we are showing the how fast will the CO2 concentration increase, and there are various estimate of the carbon dioxide increasing rate, and they are different in the statistical model used, linear versus non-linear increase and the future regulation. Okay, so you to see that this line demonstrates business as usual emission. Okay, so here you can see that the business also continuously rising and continue to the increasing carbon dioxide concentration and constant 90 emission. Okay, so this is shown that for if there is we exclude the business as usual emission, okay, then even the constant rising in the carbon dioxide concentration is there, okay, and it has many reasons. And the here this shows that 50% reduction in the emission, okay, and how we can project that the future warming. Okay, so this figure shows that vertical distribution of temperature in convective equilibrium for various values of atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration. Okay, but to see that if there are three projections, if the CO2 level is 150, okay, so this kind of trend has to be observed. If carbon dioxide is up to 300 ppm, so this trend has to be observed, okay. And if CO2 level is up to 600 ppm, okay, so this trend has to be observed, okay. So here you can see that the vertical distribution of the temperature in radiative convecting equilibrium for various values of atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration, okay, has a different effect for rising the temperature of globe, okay. And in this figure, you can see that the model projected global annual mean temperature change relative to 1990 under a wide range of scenario. And the dark shading gives the range using all 35 scenario and the average model climate sensitivity. And the light shading extend the light shading extend this range by calculating the spread from each model independently. Okay, so both models clearly indicate that in the coming future, the global temperature has to be increased if we cannot work on the prevention and control of these greenhouse gases. This is another figure which shows that the degree of warming will not be uniform everywhere. Okay, in some places the degree of warming is higher than other place, and in some places the degree of warming is lower than other place. And you can see that in this place the degree of warming is 2 degree. Okay, in some place 3 degree, in some place 4 degree, in some place 5 degree, in some place 7 degree even. Okay. So it is this chart clearly indicates that the degree of warming will not be uniform everywhere, but it also has to be observed that higher latitude are more sensitive to rising in the temperature. Okay, and if the temperature can change, so do other and meteorological and environmental variable responsible to rising in the temperature. Okay, so this figure shows that the change in the temperature may cause a change in the precipitation. Okay, so that's why the precipitation has to be affected, which leads to the floods and drought-like condition, and vegetation may also change in response to the temperature and precipitation changes. So it ultimately affects the biodiversity, and there will be a change in the animal and human world in response to these environmental changes. So this figure clearly indicates that how global mean temperature has to be changed, and how the global mean precipitation has to be changed due to the change in the global temperature of globe, and the melting ice and rising sea level due to the climate change or due to the change in the temperature of the globe. Okay, you can see that in this figure, receding high mountain glacier, and in this figure you can see that ice shelves of the South Pole have partially separated and are collapsing. Okay. Now this is another figure which showing the sea level rise. Okay, so this is another evidence which shows that the melting of glacier is there. Okay, of course the physical environment change will lead to the change in the biosphere, including our society. Okay, you can see that this is a figure, okay, which shows that okay, in the first figure this is control, in the second figure this is 4 times higher carbon dioxide concentration, okay, which increase the sea level and reduce the terrestrial place. Okay, and not everybody is convinced of greenhouse gases responsible for the global warming. Okay, so there is some controversy is also there. So at this point, it appears that the warming itself is real, and the surface temperature indeed become higher in the last 2 decades. And the question is that the warming caused by the greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide, and some group, especially the IPCC member, argue strongly for it, but there are other groups that are not convinced. Okay, so here there is Robinson et al., which discussed that world leaders gathered in Kyoto, Japan in December 1997 to consider a world treaty restricting emission of greenhouse gases and chiefly carbon dioxide that are thought to cause a global warming and severe increase in the Earth's atmosphere and surface temperature, and with disastrous environmental consequences has to be observed, and prediction of global warming are based on computer climate modeling, and the branch of science still is in its infancy, and empirical evidence, actual measurement of earth temperature shows no man-made warming trend. Indeed, over the past 2 decades, when carbon dioxide level have been at their highest, the global average temperature has actually cooled slightly, okay, which give another controversy among the scientists. And some example of this criticism is discussed here. So there are evidence to show that the current temperature is not really that warm compared to what was 2 to 3,000 years ago. And the figure to the right shows that the temperature of Sega Sea fluctuates in a range of 3.6 degree. Also, the trend depends on the data set and the section of data you select to examine, and see the lower chart. By using a different data set, here the satellite microwave sounding and selecting a suitable section. Okay, around 1917 to 98, you can actually show that there was a cooling, not warming. Okay, so this will create a controversy among the scientists. And there are also evidence shows that the solar activity seem to have some influence on atmospheric temperature. But there are many questions here, especially on how and how much it contribute to the global warming. So the global warming, more than a scientific problem, aside from scientific problem, there are political problem as well. Okay, and it discussed at the climate meeting, unlikely ally for have notes by Amy Waldman and New York Times, 1 November 2002. Okay, so in this meeting, it has to be discussed that when India Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee finished speaking at the international conference on climate change here. Okay, so the fissure between richer and poorer countries over how best to tackle global warming could no longer be papered over. And in his speech, he argued that the poorer country could not be expected to invest money in tackling the cause of global warming, and that we have little responsibility. And he said producing fewer greenhouse gases than industrialized countries, and yet have been hit harder by the natural calamities from drought to floods, and that caused by the climate change. And they have a weaker economy and with pressing needs in everything from health to education, and can little afford to invest in clean air technologies. Okay, and his speech articulated sentiments and resentments in some cases widely shared among developing nations. So while it produced a little new of substance, the conference, the eight, since the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was adopted in 1992, illuminated that the challenges in the crafting a global response to global warming, and it highlighted a divide between North and South, between the industrialized and developing world, and over who should bear the obligation and burden of trying to reduce the emission that cause global warming. But on several points, the South found itself with an unlikely the United States, which under the Bush administration that time has also glanced at joining effort to reduce emission. Instead, the United States joined India and other developing countries in encouraging a focus on developing the technology and finding the resource to adapt to climate change. Okay, and then even further in the time, the CO2 level in the atmosphere fluctuated considerably, and sometimes the concentration might be much greater than it is now. Okay, so in this way, you can see that the concentration is not continuously rising. Okay, it becomes fluctuating. Okay, but might be much greater than it is before. So the problem really that we don't know how the climate machine works. Hence, it is difficult at present to say that the warming is due to the increase of greenhouse gas only, and not the result of natural fluctuation of global climate system. So the recently there seem to be increasing evidence showing that the connection between the global warming and industrial injection of greenhouse gases. However, the extent is still not clear, and hopefully, with more research, we can say more definitely in the near future. So it is clear that apart from that, the global warming is the increase in the average temperature of the Earth near surface air and ocean, and most of the object temperature increase is caused by increased concentration of greenhouse gases. Okay, so these are the gases which contribute to the global warming. So the water vapor contribute up to 36 to 70% to the global warming, and carbon dioxide contribute to 99 to 26% to the global warming, and methane contribute to 4 to 9% to the global warming, and ozone contribute to 3 to 7% to the global warming. Okay. So the major cause of this is emission of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide into the atmosphere, and the major source is carbon dioxide, which contribute to 80% to global warming causes. Okay, and the rest of 20% by the other like methane and nitrous oxide. So it is clear that the major source of carbon dioxide is the power plants and burning of fossil fuel for the purpose of electricity generation. Okay, and around 20% of the carbon dioxide emitted in the atmosphere comes from burning of gasoline. Okay, in the automobiles. Okay, so these are the major source of uh, increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And methane is more than 20 times as fluctual as carbon dioxide if we compare it on the basis of heat trapping capacity. Okay, so methane is often from sources such as rice paddies, woven plutonium, and bacteria in box and fossil fuel manufacturing. Okay, and the main source of nitric oxide include nylon and nitric acid production, and cars with a catalytic converter, the use of fertilizer in the agriculture, and the burning of organic matter contribute to the nitrous oxide. And the deforestation also contribute to the global warming because the cutting and burning of forest for the purpose of housing or industrialization. Okay, because the forest absorb as a large amount of carbon dioxide. Okay, so this figure shows the annual greenhouse gases emission by the various sectors. Okay, so the 16.8% greenhouse gases emit by the industrial processes, and 21.3% greenhouse gases emit by the power station, and 3.4% greenhouse gases emitted by the waste disposal and waste treatment, and 10% greenhouse gases released by the land use and biomass burning, and 10.3% greenhouse gases released by the residential, commercial, and other sources, and 11.3% of greenhouse gas through the fossil fuel retrieval. Okay, and 12.5% contribute by the agricultural by-products, and 14% contribute by the transportation fuel. Okay, so it is clear that the annual greenhouse gases emission by the various sectors are different. Okay, and they contribute to at the different level. So, what are the major consequences of the greenhouse or gases or that cause global warming? Okay, so the increasing the average temperature of Earth, okay, and alterations in the ecology, okay, including an increasing sea level and modifying the quantity and pattern of rainfall, okay, and boost the occurrence and concentration of severe climate events like floods uh, and drought, heat waves, okay, and glacier melting, major summer streams floods, and the village genus extinction and rise in the range of disease vectors. Okay, and the various new diseases have emerged due to the global climate change, and the global warming is extending the distribution of mosquito due to the increasing in the humidity level and their frequent growth in warmer atmosphere. Okay, so and it also contributes and affecting the marine life. So, the response to the global warming? Okay, so the mitigation is there, adaptation is there, use of geoengineering and United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change also discuss the issue, and the Kyoto Protocol is aimed at stabilizing greenhouse gases concentration to prevent a dangerous anthropogenic interference. Okay? That is man-made interference, okay, that may contribute to the increased concentration of greenhouse gases. As of November 2009, 187 states had signed ratified the protocol, the Kyoto Protocol. Okay, uh, that contribute to the decrease emission, and how the we can reduce the global warming. Okay, so there are 10 simple steps. Okay, which may contribute to reduce global warming. Okay, so the focus on the reduce, reuse, and recycling as much as the possible. Okay, and use less heat and air conditioning, and change a light bulb by CFL, okay, which use less electricity. Okay, ultimately it will contribute to the reduce the energy resources. Okay, which comes from the either from nuclear power plant, either from thermal power plant, either from um, okay, hydroelectric power plant, and drive less and drive smart, and buy energy efficient products, and use less hot water, and use the off switch whenever needed, and plant a tree, and get a report card from your utility company, and encourage others to conserve. Okay, so now we have to revise the content which we have to discuss in this lecture. So first, we have to discuss how the climate is becoming warmer and warmer. Okay. Then we have to discuss the trend of global temperature increase. Okay. Then we have to discuss the major causes that increase the temperature of the globe. Okay. Then we have to discuss the concept of greenhouse effect. Then we have to discuss the atmospheric greenhouse effect. Then atmospheric carbon dioxide continuously rising. This we have to discuss. And how is the carbon dioxide increase connected to the global warming, and how it respond to the positive feedback and the negative feedback, and example of positive feedback and example of negative feedback, and how fast will the CO2 concentration increase. Then the future projection of global warming we have to discuss, and the degree of warming will not be uniform everywhere. The higher latitudes are more sensitive to the global warming, and if the temperature can change, so do other meteorological and environmental variables are changed, like precipitation has to be changed, which ultimately affect the biodiversity, and melting of glacier, which contribute to the rising sea level, and not everybody convinced with the greenhouse gas responsible for the global warming. So there is some criticism also there, and the climate meeting that organized in New York, then the causes of global warming, then consequences of global warming, and how responses to global warming, then what are the measures that used to reduce global warming, Yeah, the references. Now you have to attend quiz. So the gases responsible for global warming. Okay. So all these gases responsible for global warming. So option D is correct. The natural cause of global warming. Okay, so the climate become warmer by internal chaotic dynamics of Earth's nuclear system, and either direct increase of solar energy. So the solar activity also responsible for the global warming. Okay, so these both are the natural causes. So the option C is correct. The main suspect of causing the global warming. Okay, so it is carbon dioxide. So option A is correct. And the climate system is very complicated. A change in one component of system will change in the other component. This phenomena is called feedback effect. Okay, there are two types of feedback effect. If response increase, that is called positive feedback. If it will be decreased, it is called negative feedback. Okay, so when the climate become warmer, okay, okay, so the ocean may also become warmer. Okay, so this is called positive feedback effect. So option A is correct. Okay, so thank you everyone.